Hello, and thank you for joining me today. It's Allan Laboucan with the Rocks and Stocks News Show. It's been a couple of weeks since my last show because I went on a short-term holiday out to the beach in Puerto Vallarta. It was very nice, and I don't do a lot of holidays, but it was good to get out in the sun and enjoy the beach weather in Puerto Vallarta. But before I left, I had done a show with Rob McEwen. And I found some really good feedback from that interview that I did with Rob. And he's a very positive guy. And as you can see from the interview snapshot there, we were enjoying ourselves during the conversation. And what I do enjoy about chatting with Rob is I think he has a very dynamic company in McEwen Mining. And I think that they're going to have big success for investors. But then I also have the opportunity, he's very gracious with his time on our show. And I always try to get some insights out of him as to what he is doing personally as an investor, because not only has he been very successful in managing companies, past success was Gold Corp. During his tenure of running the company, it went from a small explorer to a small producer to a big producer that produced gold at a very low cost and a high profit margin due to the high grades in their Red Lake mine. And so he's had a success at running companies, and he's also had a lot of success as an investor in the sector. And so in our conversation recently, I picked his brain on behalf of our audience on to some of what trends that he's seeing and how he's reacting to those trends. And one of the key things that I took away from the conversation was Rob talked about the similarities of the last few weeks or of the last month of the summer being very similar to the tax loss selling season that happens in December after all the tax loss selling trading happens, where investors are really just selling because of tax considerations. They're not selling because of the fundamentals of the company. So it creates a lot of great opportunities. And if you pick a good batch of companies from that time, very quickly, often within a month or two, they can be up quite dramatically. And so that's one important seasonal trend that happens every year. Another seasonal trend that happens is that in the second half of the summer, the dog days of the summer, investors, a lot of them are away on vacations. A lot of brokers and institutional people go away on vacation. This creates less volume. And if the sentiment is already poor and you've got that less volume, you can see stocks getting pushed down quite dramatically. And so he was talking about the similarities between the August and the tax loss selling season in December, trading very similarly, and we're seeing that this year. I would personally add that I think that we're at a low sentiment portion of what I believe a bull market for gold actually started last September, October, November. With a big bottoming in September, October, and November, and then a big breakout in early November. And yet, after this has improved quite dramatically, the gold stocks are still not believing that we are in the early days of a long-term bull market. And so you see right now that there is a big disconnect between the price of gold and silver and copper and other metals and the valuations of the companies that are involved with exploration and new mine development and mining, for that matter. The big companies are suffering as well from poor sentiment. But I believe strongly that we're in a very early stages of a bull market for gold and other metals that will last a very long period of time. It reminds me a lot of the action is very similar to the early days of the 2001 to 2011 bull market for gold and other metals. And there was tremendous fortunes made during that bull market. And I think we're going to see the similar thing happen in this current bull market that nobody's really recognizing with the sentiment being so poor. So you've got a combination there of poor sentiment towards the sector and then the seasonality of what happens in August. And Rob was making the case that this is a good time to be deploying money, and that's what he's doing. And so we also had a very good conversation about his company, McEwen Mining. Some of the key takeaways from McEwen Mining are that they've got a combination, as I mentioned in this, the headline of this interview. McEwen Mining has a remarkable combination of gold mining and undeveloped copper mine of the future. So the stock has come up quite significantly from September of last year. It's up about 200 or 300%. And a lot of that has to do with what's happening with the copper side of the company. Specifically, McEwen Mining owns 52% of McEwen Copper. And McEwen Copper is doing very well on their Las Azules mine. And recently they came out with some very good results and very good news. Actually, later this week, I'll be talking to Rob again. And based on the news release that happened last week. And so what I see out of McEwen Copper is that they have a project that will be a future mine that will last for several decades. It's a very big undeveloped mine, one of the biggest, top 10 biggest undeveloped mines in the world for copper. And it is also of those companies, it's in the lowest quartile of cost to produce copper from that deposit. So, you know, that's what you want in a mining operation, low costs and high margins. And that's exactly what Las Azules looks like. A couple of other important factors are the other 48% is collectively owned by three groups. One is Rio Tinto's Newton venture, owns about 14%, and Rob McEwen owns about the same amount, and Stellantis, which is a car maker that maybe not a lot of people know who Stellantis is, but basically they're the former big three. They bought Chrysler and Dodge, and they also have Fiat and Maserati and other brands. So they're a major car maker. And it was very interesting when they came in with a big investment. I think it was about $150 million to gain that position. Is that we've seen the car makers get involved with lithium, but this was the first time that I saw them get involved with copper. And in reality, copper is, you know, a critical metal for plenty of applications, but certainly in the automobile and the electric automobile industry. And so it was quite an endorsement of the property project to have an end user, a significant end user that wanted to become very involved with the company. So the McEwen Copper side is doing very well. But what had pushed down the stock price to its lows of last September-ish was the copper or the gold operations. They were having some challenges with their gold mining operations. They had some technical problems, they had some grade control problems, they had some cost problems. And but in the last year, they've been turning the corner on their gold mining operations. They're bringing the cost down. They're getting better control of their grades, and they don't have the operational problems that they did. And so what I see with McEwen Mining is an opportunity that you get access to a combination of a gold mining turnaround story. And I think that they're well on their way to that turnaround happening. And also this copper asset that I believe will be an important future mine. And I invite you to check out the interview, because McEwen Mining, McEwen Copper is doing some very exciting things on how they want to develop that in a sustainable way. And the methods that they're doing that are quite impressive. So I invite you to check out McEwen, or that interview that I did with Rob McEwen. But then we also talked a little bit about his other company, which is called Canadian Gold Corp. And Canadian Gold Corp is a very interesting exploration story. What they did is Rob McEwen had a private company, and he vended that private company into another company, and became a very large shareholder, and has been helping to restructure the company and get it well financed. But this other company had a great asset in a project that is quite impressive. It's a gold project, a very high grade gold project. And what happened was that the company had financial problems, and so it stopped production. But it was left with a very interesting story in that it has this high grade sort of core of the deposit that is pointing down to depth. And then there was a couple of holes well below the mining and the resource that had hit very thick intersections of high grade. And this is an exciting opportunity, because I think that it has the sound to me like an orogenic gold system. And these orogenic gold systems can go down very, very deep. In fact, Gold Corp, Red Lake mine, was one such mine. And it was mining near surface for many years, sort of a so-so mine. Then they got down to about 1,000 meters and started hitting bonanza grades. And those bonanza grades continued for over another 1,000 meters. And the rest was history, so to speak, for Gold Corp under the tenure of Rob McEwen. And then Rob brought in Ian Ball, who was also important with Gold Corp, to run Canadian Gold Corp. And so they got right back to drilling the depth potential, let's say about 800 meters or so, drilling in around that, those couple of thick intersections of very high grade. And so they've been drilling away, and those results are pending. But Canadian Gold Corp has a very modest valuation. And it was sort of nice to have an update from Rob about that company. And then another company that he's involved with as an investor, that is a sponsor of my shows, is a company called Dynasty Gold. He put a $1.2 million into that company as a lead order in a financing that subsequently was oversubscribed quite significantly, because it's in Dryden, Ontario, not far from Red Lake, Ontario. And it is an orogenic gold system as well, just like at Red Lake. And they have released earlier this year spectacularly high grades. over a 1.5 meter intersection of 246 grams of gold, and another 3 meters of 151 grams, hit quite a thick intersection of 8 grams. So it's a very compelling exploration story that it's interesting to see Rob McEwen as a significant shareholder of that company. And so we didn't just talk about McEwen Mining, we also talked about his enthusiasm for exploration stocks. And you know, this is kind of indicative of what the industry needs. Is the industry needs a lot more exploration and new mine development, which is kind of one of the reasons that you can be bullish on those gold and copper, silver, other metals, all suffer from years of underinvestment in exploration and new mine development, which is, you know, affects the supply chain of those metals. And then you've got strong demand coming for gold and other metals. And this combination of the supply and demand argument is very bullish. And I think the most important part of the sector is the exploration side, because we need to find a lot more mines. We need to find a pipeline of projects that can move into the development stage and then on to the mining. And so Rob kind of covers the whole gamut from production, development, and exploration, not only in his company, but as an investor. And so I wanted to sort of highlight that because I was thinking a lot about it while I was off on my holidays, and just how good of an opportunity that there is out there for investors right now. All right, so next I'm going to move on to one of my top picks is also a sponsor, and their name is i-80 Gold. And I'm just pulling up their screen here. Just bear with me a second. And i-80 Gold had news out while I was away on holidays, of course. And what they announced in the news release that I will be trying to get an interview with you and Downey on is on August the 2nd here. They announced that i-80 Gold discovers high-grade gold sulfide zone at Ruby Hill that had 45.4 grams of gold and 50.2 grams of silver over 17.5 meters. This is a massive intersection. What they point out here is that this is the discovery of a new sulfide horizon. I think they call it the Tai Chi zone, which carried high-grade gold and silver mineralization from exploration drilling at their 100% owned Ruby Hill property in Eureka County, Nevada. The discovery was made in a previously untested area along the Graveyard Fault intrusive, returning exceptional high-grade mineralization over an intercept width, assaying that, as you said, as it says in the headline, 45.4 grams of gold and 50 grams of silver over 17.5 meters. They mentioned that the new zone was intersected in directional drilling program being completed at Ruby Hill to test the Blackjack deposit that is located under the Archimedes open pit. They got strongly alteration and brecciation intrusive rock intersected along the margin of the Graveyard Flat stock with visible gold, elevated sulfides, and vuggy silica. A wedge hole was also completed and intersected a broad zone of similar alteration, approximately 60 meters down dip of 18A with assays pending. Ewan Downey, who said, and I quote, "We have now made 7 new discoveries at Ruby Hill since we began testing new targets on the property in mid-2022. This program has discovered multiple styles of mineralization in a compact area proximal to the existing pit, including high-grade polymetallic base metal in a CRD, a zinc skarn, Carlin type gold, sediment hosted disseminated gold, and now visible gold and intrusive. This confirms our belief that the Ruby Hill is host to a world-class mineralizing system and multiple high priority anomalies identified from geophysical surveys remain untested, end quote. I don't think that there's any stretch of the imagination to call Ruby Hill a world-class mineralizing system. As Ewan said, there is multiple different styles, lots of high grade. What I found really interesting about this is that this blackjack, this is the zinc skarn that they talk about. And as you can see here in the dashed lines is the graveyard flat stock boundary. So they went on the other side of the fault and they caught this new sulfide system. That kind of system has not been seen on this property. Over here at Lower Hilltop and Upper Hilltop, you've got the CRD. This is a skarn as well. Over here you have the Carlin style gold with very high grades in it as well. So as you can see right there, you've got this mineralization, you've got this mineralization, this, and then over here, a new style of mineralization. So there's something very big and powerful pumping these various different kind of geological systems with very high grade in it as well. And that's why I think you can easily call this a world-class discovery. And here you can see just on the other side of that structure, look at the concentration of that high grade in that intersection and a new style. So it opens up a big area on the other side of the blackjack that looks quite spectacular. And so I'm going to get Ewan on a show because I really want to talk about this new style of mineralization, this sulfide mineralization, and it being located where it is. Ultimately, I think that i-80 Gold is a core holding kind of investment opportunity that as they continue to, and you can see these operational results here that help you understand all the various assets. But I think ultimately this is going to make them a very big company of the future. And I really like what I see, and I think that this is going to grow into a very big company. Okay, so after I'm going to now talk about some of my sponsors. i-80 Gold is a sponsor, and I've got some more. And then I'm going to talk about some companies that are not sponsors. So stay tuned for that. But first, I'm going to start with more on my sponsors. One of those is Alta Copper. As you can see here, I did a recent interview with Alta Copper's Giulio Bonifacio, and they are another very interesting copper developer in that they've got a top 10 undeveloped project in both grade and size. And when you put those two combinations together, that's exactly what the major mining companies need. It's not that they want them, they need them, because a lot of the old mines are very old, ancient, and are not going to be around for very much longer when we move into this transition to electric vehicles and new energy sources, alternative energy sources. It's going to need a lot of copper, and there's just not enough new projects being developed that can move in and be the future mines that the major mining companies are going to need, because they're depleting their known mines. And Alta Copper has one of those major mining companies. I believe it's going to be a future mine that's owned by a much bigger company. And specifically because of the size and the grade. And when you have that combination, it means high margins, that can pay back the capital cost of developing a mine very rapidly. And that's exactly what Alta Copper has. And I think that that's another good interview for you to take a look at. Another interview that I did not too long ago was with a company called Athena, also a sponsor. And Athena announced, when was it here? On June the 20th that they've, or so shortly after that, they put out a news release that they had completed their drilling program. And what I'm going to bring up this news release because it will help me to show you where they're drilling and why they're drilling where they are. So they drilled these 3 holes, and in an oxide deposit, they got exceptionally high grade results from that drilling. And then they followed that up with drilling along strike. And I think that they've got a very compelling story here. That's just early. You're only talking a few holes into this zone of oxide gold with very high grades of oxide gold. You know, and a lot of oxide deposits, a half a gram is what makes mines. They were getting up to 15 grams in those 3 holes, and 5 to 15 grams kind of numbers. And now they're stepping out to see if they can show some size to it as well. And I think they've got a very compelling story here, but a really cheap valuation. They're under a $5 million Canadian valuation. And I think that's a tremendous opportunity for investors. And so take a look at Athena Gold. Another company that I've done recent interviews with is Blackrock Silver, also a sponsor. And what really excites me is they've got this Tonopah West project that I'm really quite enthusiastic about, because it has a lot of the earmarks of what SilverCrest has at their Las Chispas mine. And at Las Chispas, they're mining all-in sustaining costs, about $11.85 per ounce of silver, and yet they're selling it for over $20 an ounce. So that can make for a real cash cow. But this Silver Cloud project is another one that I'm really excited about, because at Silver Cloud, they had, this was the original project that they were working on when Andrew Pollard became the CEO of the company. And what was really exciting is that they kind of got more focused on Tonopah because they were having really good drill results and it looked like an exceptional project. Then they went in and they drilled some more holes at Silver Cloud and found spectacularly high grades in an epithermal vein system of up to 71 grams per ton of gold and 600 grams of silver. When you do that in an epithermal vein system, it tells you that you have hit the boiling zone of that epithermal vein. So now they're expanding on that. They're drilling right now. They have a bunch of assays pending. And I think that Silver Cloud could be something that really drives the interest of the company. I think it's trading at a very low valuation right now, and not too long from now, we should start to see some assay results from Silver Cloud. And I have a lot of confidence that they will be able to deliver with those assay results due to what they've already drilled into, which is the boiling zone of an epithermal vein. And not too far away from them is the Midas mine, which was a spectacular epithermal vein. And then the Hollister mine is over to the east. To the north is Midas, to the east is Hollister. And now they've found this brand new vein. And another thing that happens with these epithermal veins is you often find them in clusters. So there's a good chance, I think, that they'll find more of these epithermal veins in close proximity to the one that they've already found. And the fact that they've already hit the boiling zone of the epithermal vein, if they find new ones, it tells them where they should drill to hit more of this bonanza grade boiling zone of this epithermal vein. So I'm very bullish on Silver Cloud and as well as their Tonopah West project. And I invite you to check out Blackrock. Alrighty, so now I'm going to move on to Copper Road. Copper Road is a new addition to my sponsorship program. And what I like about this company is that they're in Ontario, near Batchewana Bay, Ontario. They've got a project that's in close proximity, has road access about 20 kilometers away. And what I see on the project is quite a compelling copper exploration story in that they have a combination of porphyries that look like they have mineable grades, as well as breccia pipes. And sometimes these breccia pipes can be quite significantly higher grade than the associated porphyries. And they can be standalone great mines all on their own because they have these high grades and often quite compelling tonnage as well. So they've got a cluster of breccia pipes and a series of porphyry targets and known porphyries. And it's all very underexplored. And as I was talking earlier, when it comes to copper development stories, there's not enough of those. And when it comes to copper exploration, there is very few good copper exploration stories out there. I'm always on the hunt for them, and I have a hard time finding them. And Copper Road has a very compelling story, not just because of the known mineralization and the large and the historic mining on the property, but it's good infrastructure and it's in Ontario. You know, the Canadian government and the Ontario government are, you know, they see the writing on the wall that we're going to need a lot more of these battery metals and critical minerals and copper. There's no more critical metal than copper. It is the most critical metal, and there's just not enough exploration going on with good, solid exploration stories. And I think that Copper Road Resources has one of those, and in the not too distant future, they're going to start drilling it. They're going to go after their Richards breccia pipe, which I think is very exciting story because it's got some thick intersections of over 1% copper. And then they've got their porphyry that looks like it could be associated to that breccia, and it's got a compelling grade for a porphyry. And they're going to go after those two targets with their next rounds of drilling. So stay tuned for more news out of Copper Road. Alrighty, so now I'm going to move over. I already talked about Dynasty Gold when I was talking about Rob McEwen interview, because he is an investor in Dynasty Gold. And then we've got Fokus Mining. Fokus Mining has a very exciting project in Quebec, the Galloway project. That it gives me a lot of the same kind of feelings that I had about Osisko in their early days. I made them a pick when they were a very small exploration company that went on to become a huge success. And it is a lower grade project, but big tonnage. And I think that that's what Galloway looks like it could be as well. Big tonnage, low grade open pit that you can make a lot of money off of. It's wide open for exploration, and there's significant zones already found. And you could actually visualize a conceptual pit design inside of a series of deposits that, you know, are over a couple kilometers long and still open in both directions and at depth. So they got some drilling done recently. Those results are pending. I like the potential of what they have just because it reminds me a lot of the early days of Osisko. You know, I don't make those comparisons lightly. There's certain characteristics that you need to see. I was fortunate to have recognized Osisko very early, I'm seeing the same hallmarks here for Fokus Mining. They're not getting a lot of attention like a lot of junior explorers right now. I think they've got something that could turn into a very compelling story that sees a much higher valuation. I think that gives investors a good opportunity, and, you know, check out Fokus Mining. All righty. So next up is Galantas Gold. Not too long ago, I did an interview with Galantas Gold. And then they came out with some excellent results while I was away on holidays. These guys, they gotta coordinate their news releases with my holidays a little bit better. They have this OMA project that I'm very excited about, and they gave the announcement of the progress that they're making, because it's a sort of a a triple focus, if you will. So they've got the OMA project, and OMA, it's an orogenic gold system, and they're mining near surface. You can see some of the historical workings there in that image. And they brought in a contract miner that is very experienced in Europe, and specifically in Ireland, where the OMA project is. So that's one focus. And then the other focus is at depth. At depth, these orogenic gold systems can go on very deep. And what's compelling about the story is that they found a series of dilation zones. And this is where the rocks will open up, and it allows those fluids carrying the gold to make their way up. But it's important for a mining perspective, because those become jewelry boxes that make a lot of money when you mine them. But they also give you an indication of how to follow those deeper. And so these dilation zones are important for the exploration and the mining. Another focus of the company is their Galantas project in Scotland. It's a VMS project that they're just very brand new exploration on that. And they're already getting some very exciting intersections of sulfides that are kicking back some very nice grades. Let me just pull up this news release for a second here. And look at these grades in the headline. 33 meters at 1.88 grams per ton of gold, 1.23% copper, 0.5% zinc at their Galantas. And that's just the first hole out of that project. I think that that's another one that's going to deliver a lot of good results. And I think that the combination of having a VMS system as well as a orogenic gold system is very exciting opportunity for investors, and this is another one that I think you should take a look at. Goliath, or Golden, sorry, getting my companies mixed up here. Generation Mining is also a new sponsor, and they've got the Marathon project. What really excites me is that it's a palladium and copper project in northwestern Ontario. It's really close to a city, and also just off the Trans-Canada Highway. So it's got great infrastructure. They've done a feasibility study that has a very compelling internal rate of return, 25.8%. A 2.3-year payback at 1,800 palladium and 370 copper. I think palladium and copper are going to go much higher than that. Palladium, they kind of cover the two sides of the automobile industry. Palladium's needed for internal combustion engines to clean up the emissions. And copper is needed for electric vehicles and alternative energy sources. And they've got a very good combination there that is in the it's along the Lassonde curve. There's two important parts of the Lassonde curve. One is the left side of the Lassonde curve, or the left wave of the Lassonde curve, and that's when a company has exploration success. Can be very exciting and make a lot of people a lot of money. Then they tend to go through what's called the development discount window, and that can last 7 to 10 years. And then the next big wave is when they bring a project into production. And there's a sweet spot right before that happens, that when you buy them in that sweet spot of the second wave of the Lassonde curve, you see another big run that can sometimes be more impressive than even on the exploration success run. And in fact, I think that in reality, there's not a lot of companies out there that are in that sweet spot of the second wave of the Lassonde curve. And that's exactly where Generation Mining is. They've even got offtake agreements. They've got streaming deals. This is a pretty advanced project. And in fact, it wouldn't shock me if Pierre Lassonde himself got interested in investing in this company, because it meets all the criteria that he looks for in companies on the Lassonde curve itself. And that's why I'm excited to have Generation Mining in my sponsorship program, and stay tuned for more news out of Generation Mining. All right, Golden Lake Exploration. Earlier I talked about I-80 Gold. They have the ground directly to the south of I-80 Gold. Golden Lake's property has seen historical production. It has the same network of faulting that goes from I-80's ground all the way through Golden Lake's ground, and the right kind of geology and geochemistry, and high-grade mineralization, CRD with overprint of high-grade gold. I think that this is a very compelling exploration company that is right beside one of my favorite companies, which is I-80 Gold. And it has all the characteristics that have brought success to I-80 Gold's Ruby Hill project on their ground to the immediate south. And they're doing some geophysical work right now to prepare for drilling. And then they'll get drilling, and I think that they're going to deliver some very good drilling results, because I see all the similarities that I saw with I-80 Gold. And then right to their immediate south was Paycore, which they've now bought out. So now they own all the Paycore ground, and Paycore was a sponsor of my show. So it was a very good pick for my audience. And so now the consolidated ground that I-80 has with the Paycore takeover, and then Golden Lake is there to their immediate south. So take a look at Golden Lake, because I think they've got a compelling exploration story as well. Goliath Resources, they started drilling about a month ago, and they just keep coming out with great news release after great news release. They're finding a tremendous amount of visible gold in their drilling this year. They had a series of news releases out showing the visible gold and where they're drilling that visible gold, and how it relates to their Sherbet zone and the other zones that are known on that Gold Digger project. And I think I've said it before, and I'm sure I'm going to say it again, but I think that they've got the most compelling new discovery in the Golden Triangle of British Columbia, Canada, in many years. That's saying a lot because this is one of the most prolific regions in Canada. It's known for very high-grade gold mineralization and other high-grade metals. And I think that Goliath is going to ultimately have a target that is 2 to 5 million ounces of gold or much larger. And I'm starting to feel that much larger is going to happen. I think it'll ultimately become a future mine that's owned by a much bigger company than Goliath Resources. And therefore, I think that this is a compelling investment opportunity. They will have, for investors that like gold exploration, and they will have a very strong news flow as they come out with the assay results from all these holes that they're drilling right now. So take a look at Goliath. Next up is, I already talked about i-80 Gold, Puma Exploration. Puma's in New Brunswick, and they've got a very exciting story in New Brunswick that I think is going to play out into a quite an exceptional success. Let me just pull up. So they started drilling about a month and a half ago, a little over a month ago. And then here they announced Puma Exploration drills visible gold in 2023 drilling program at the Williams Brook project. They talk about a series of quartz veins with associated sulfide mineralization that typically carries gold, and they found several specks of visible gold were also observed in the quartz veins. Let's take a look at some of these. As you can see, here's some sulfides, and then there's some gold there. Here you got some sulfides and gold as well. And these are all the surface places where the veins outcrop. And then they've drilled a series of holes that have found a lot of great mineralization. Here's that visible gold again. And here's one of the intersections of that visible gold. Quartz brecciated visible stockwork at 86.4 meters. This is the juicy stuff you're looking for right in here. Yeah, as you can see, there's the contact between the country rock and the mineralized rock that they're looking for. More VG. This exploration project that Puma is currently on is starting out with a bang. I think the company has a really good handle on the gold mineralization. I think that they're going to deliver some excellent results with their current drilling. And do your homework on Puma, because I think that they also offer a very compelling exploration story for investors that like to invest in exploration. Sokoman Minerals is actually, they kind of have a two-pronged story that I think could turn into a three-pronged story. They've got their Moosehead project, which is an orogenic gold system that they've found a lot of high-grade gold and even up to bonanza-grade gold. And they're using that to follow that system deeper. And that's how you go about finding an important orogenic gold system. And at the same time, they've also got a partnership, a 50-50 joint venture on a lithium project in Newfoundland as well that looks quite compelling. Those are their key drilling programs. That will have lots of results throughout the remainder of this year. But then they've got a project that they've started to talk a little bit more about, which is this Fleur-de-Lis project. And they talk about it also being an orogenic gold system that is has the geological characteristics of the Dalradian area in Ireland. And here they talk about some of their values and why it reminds them of the Cairngallagh, I think I said that right, project in Northern Ireland. And they show you some of the fleur-de-lis rocks and why they think that they have something quite significant there, which I think that they do. So right now, the dual focus is on their Moosehead project. Second in line would be their lithium project, and third in line would be their fleur-de-lis. But these things can bounce around in priority, and it all depends on the drilling results. And I think you're going to see a lot of good stuff coming out of their Moosehead project, and also their lithium project and fleur-de-lis. So take a look at Sokoman. And Walker River Resources is in the western part of Nevada. And they've drilled a lot of high-grade gold on this side of this mountain in the Walker Lane trend of Nevada. And so they've got this large area, probably 600 or 700 meters from side to side on the mountain, and maybe 800 meters from top to bottom, that looks quite compelling. And because they've hit a lot of gold mineralization, but what also makes it quite compelling is that they've got a large area of alteration. And when the gold-bearing fluids make their way to the surface, they interact with the country rock and chemically alter that country rock. So they've got gold mineralization in their drilling, a large area of alteration, and then also they've got the faulting, which are your cracks in the earth that allow those fluids to make their way up towards surface that have the gold in them. So they've got all of the elements to make a very important and big discovery in Nevada. And I'm very bullish on this project. I think that they've got something quite spectacular there. It's obviously going to take more drilling, but once they get a handle on that entire system, I think it's going to prove out to be a very big and powerful gold mineralizing system that I could easily look and make the argument that it could be in the 2 to 5 million ounce target range. And those kind of projects in Nevada don't come around very often. And Walker River Resources has one of those, but they're not getting recognized for it. And I don't think that that's, sort of Walker River Resources specific. I think it's more of a general malaise towards the gold exploration sector, but that's where you find value. I think that they've added a lot of value, and I think you want to do your homework on them. Alrighty. So just some quick, I'm going to run off some quick companies here that are not sponsors, but I like their projects a lot. SilverCrest is a mining company at their Las Chispas mine in Sonora, Mexico. They recently put out an updated or a technical report that is, when you do prior to mining, you're sort of looking forward. When you do the mining, you know what the data looks like. And some of it was, it wasn't well received because it drove the stock down to its 52-week low. But ultimately, it doesn't really change a whole lot. Maybe you can't point to the future and say there's more than 8 years of production. But even if you only had 8 years of production at $11.85 an ounce of silver production and selling it for over $20, you're making a lot of money there. It's a cash machine. And already in their first month or quarter of full commercial production, They were able to pay down 95% of the capital expenditures to build that mine, and they built up their cash. It's a free cash flow machine. And that doesn't change whether you're looking at the forward-looking technical reports that are done prior to production or this one that is done now. And it is only a snapshot of today. You know, they can keep drilling and find more, which I think that they will. And you know, with it trading at a 52-week low, I think SilverCrest is a very compelling story. Bell Copper is drilling in Elephant Country of Arizona, looking for elephant deposits of copper. I think they're on the edge of finding something, and I'm quite excited about the target that they have, and the guy running the company, Tim, is a very their CEO is a very sharp guy, knows what he's doing when it comes to exploration in Arizona. He was involved in one of the big discoveries there, and he's rolling up his sleeves looking for another one. And I like their chances to find that. They got a tiny valuation, and they're looking for an elephant in Elephant Country, and I think they've clipped it so far. But now they're going for the guts of it, and if they hit it, it's going to be it'll trade at many multiples of its current valuation. So I think it's a pretty exciting risk-reward proposition. Orogen Royalties, I'm just going to mention them briefly because I'm doing an interview with them tomorrow. And they've got a great story as a royalty company. What makes them interesting is that they generate their own royalties. They go out and find projects, bring them to majors. The majors are big companies, have success with them. They already did that with First Majestic's Ermitaño mine, and they have a 2% royalty off of that. That's making them lots of money. They also have a 1% royalty on Anglo Gold's project in Nevada, the Merlin and Silicon discoveries that are pretty spectacular. They just had some news out on it today, and I invited their CEO Patty Nicol on to talk about it tomorrow morning. And so stay tuned for that interview that you'll see tomorrow. Alrighty, this show turned out a little bit longer than I had anticipated. Been off for a while. I guess I had lots of energy to do a big show, but you'll find in the notes the where the various companies appear in the video. And as always, my shows are for information purposes only. It's important for you to do your homework, speak with your financial advisors to assess if this meets your risk profile. I have to say that my sponsors pay me a fee, and that makes my work possible. But they all, whether a company is a sponsor or not a sponsor, they all have to go through the same filter system. I'm always whether a company is a sponsor or not, I always look for the same sort of stuff, whether they're an explorer, developer, or a miner. And I'm looking for undervalued opportunities for my audience. And that's really who the shows are made for, is my audience. And so that's my disclosure, and my biases. And I do these shows to help you in the due diligence process, but really that's what you need to do. You need to check out their websites, look at their news releases, their corporate presentations, and I think you'll understand why I make the picks I do, and invite the sponsors to be sponsors. And but the important thing is for you to do your homework. On that note, have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.